Hello, my dear students. Welcome to Teacher at Home. Today class we are going to learn the third chapter, money and credit. Money as a medium of exchange. The use of money spans a very large part of our everyday life. Look around you and you would easily be able to identify several transactions involving money in any single day. Can you make a list of these? In many of these transactions, goods are being bought and sold with the use of money. In some of these transactions, services are being exchanged with money. For some, there might not be any actual transfer of money taking place now, but a promise to pay money later. Have you ever wondered why transactions are made in money? The reason is simple. A person holding money can easily exchange it for any commodity or service that he or she might want. Thus, everyone prefers to receive payments in money and then exchange the money for things that they want. Take the case of a shoe manufacturer. He wants to sell shoes in the market and buy wheat. The shoe manufacturer will first exchange shoes that he has purchased for money and then exchange the money for wheat. Imagine how much more difficult it would be if the shoe manufacturer had to directly exchange shoes for wheat without the use of money. He would have to look for a wheat growing farmer who not only wants to sell wheat but also wants to buy shoes in exchange. That is, both parties have to agree to sell and buy each other's commodities. This is known as double coincidence of wants. What a person decides to sell is exactly what the other wishes to buy. In a barter system where goods are directly exchanged without the use of money, double coincidence of wants is an essential feature. In contrast, in an economy where money is in use, money by providing the crucial intermediate step eliminates the need for double coincidence of wants. It is no longer necessary for the shoe manufacturer to look for a farmer who will buy his shoes and at the same time sell him wheat. All he has to do is find a buyer for his shoes. Once he has exchanged his shoes for money, he can purchase wheat or any other commodity in the market. Since money acts as an intermediate in the exchange process, it is called the medium of exchange. Modern forms of money. See here earlier punch marked coins, 22,500 years old. Gupta coins, Tughlaq coins, gold mohar from Akbar's reign, and modern coin. Modern forms of money. We have seen that money is something that can act as a medium of exchange in transactions. Before the introduction of coins, a variety of objects was used as a money. For example, since the very early ages, Indians used grains and cattle as money. Thereafter came the use of metallic coins, gold, silver, copper coins, a phase which continued well into the last century. Currency. Modern forms of money include currency, paper notes, and coins. Unlike the things that were used as money earlier, modern currency is not made of precious metals such as gold, silver, and copper. And unlike grain and cattle, they are neither of everyday use. The modern currency is without any use of its own. Then, why is it accepted as a medium of exchange? It is accepted as a medium of exchange because currency is authorized by the government of the country. In India, the Reserve Bank of India issues currency notes on behalf of the central government. As per Indian law, no other individual or organization is allowed to issue currency. Moreover, the law legalizes the use of rupee as a medium of payment that cannot be refused in settling transactions in India. No individual in India can legally refuse a payment made in rupees. Hence, the rupees is widely accepted as a medium of exchange. Deposits with banks. The other form in which people hold money is a deposit with banks. At a point of time, the people need only some currency for their day to day needs. For instance, workers who receive their salaries at the end of each month have extra cash at the beginning of the month. What do people do with this extra cash? They deposit it with the banks by opening a bank account in their names. Banks accept the deposits and also pay an amount as interest on the deposits. In this way, people's money is safe with the banks and it earns an amount as interest. People also have the provisions to withdraw the money as and when they require. Since the deposit in the bank accounts can be withdrawn on demand, these deposits are called demand deposits. Demand deposits offer another interesting facility. It is this facility which lends it is the essential characteristics of money. You would have heard of payment being made by check instead of cash. For payment through check, the payer who has an account with the bank make out a check for the specific amount. A check is a paper instructing the bank to pay a specific amount from the person's account to the person in whose name the check has been issued. See, check payments. A shoe manufacturer, Mr. Selim, has to make a payment to the leather supplier, writes a check for a specific amount. This means that the shoe manufacturer instructs his bank to pay this amount to the leather supplier. This leather supplier takes this check and deposit it in his own account in the bank. The money is transferred from one bank account to another bank account in a couple of days. The transaction is complete without any payment of cash. Pay Prem Kumar 57,000 only, that is written here. Thus, we see that demand deposit share essential features of money. The facility of checks against demand deposit make it possible to directly settle payments without the use of cash. Since demand deposits are accepted widely as a means of payment only with currency, they constitute money in the modern economy. You must remember the role that the banks play here. But for the banks, there would be no demand deposit and no payment by checks against these deposits. The modern forms of money, currency, and deposits are closely linked to the working of the modern banking system. Loan activities of banks. Let us take the story of banks further. What do the banks do with the deposits which they accept from the public? There is an interesting mechanism at work here. Banks keep only a small proportion of their deposit as cash with themselves. For example, banks in India these days hold about 15% of their deposit as cash. This is kept as provisions to pay the depositor who might come to withdraw money from the bank on any given day. Since on a particular day only some of its many depositors come to withdraw cash, the bank is able to manage with this cash. Banks use a major portion of the deposits to extend loans. There is a huge demand for loans for various economic activities. We shall read more about this in the following sections. Banks make use of the deposits to meet the loan requirements of the people. In this way, banks mediate between those who have surplus funds, the depositors, and those who are in need of the funds. Banks charge a high interest rate on loans than what they offer on deposits. The difference between what is charged from borrowers and what is to be paid to the depositors is their main source of income. What do you think would happen if all the depositors went to ask for the money at the same time? People make depositors. People make withdrawal and get interest. People take loans. People repay loans with interest. Two different credit situations. A large number of transactions in our day to day activities involve credit in some form or the other. Credit or the loan refer to an agreement in which the lender supplies the borrower with money, goods, or services in return for the promise of future payment. Let us see how credit works through the following two examples. Festival season. It is festival season 2 months from now, and the shoe manufacturer Salim has received an order from a large trader in town for 3,000 pairs of shoes to be delivered in a month time. To complete production on time, Salim has to hire a few more workers for stitching and pasting work. He has to purchase the raw materials to meet these expenses. Salim obtained loan from two sources. First, he asks the leather supplier to supply leather now and promises to pay him later. Second, he obtained loan in cash from the large trader as advance payment for 1,000 pair of shoes with a promise to deliver the whole order by the end of the month. At the end of the month, Salim is able to deliver the order, make a good profit, and repay the money that he had borrowed. In this case, Salim obtains credit to meet the working capital needs of production. The credit helps him to meet the ongoing expenses of production, complete production on time, and thereby increase his earnings. Credit therefore plays a vital and positive role in this situation. Sapna's problem. Sapna, a small farmer, grows coconut on her 3 acres of land. She takes a loan from the money lender to meet the expenses of cultivation. hoping that her harvest would help repay the loan. Midway through the season, the crop is hit by pests and the crop fails. Though Sapna sprays her crops with the expensive pesticide, it makes little difference. She is unable to repay the moneylender and the debt grows over the year into a large amount. Next year, Sapna takes a fresh loan for cultivation. It is a normal crop this year, but the earnings are not enough to cover the old loan. She is caught in debt. She has to sell a part of the land to pay off the debt. In rural areas, the main demand for credit is for crop production. Crop production involves considerable cost on seeds, fertilizer, pesticides, water, electricity, repair of equipment, etc. There is a minimum stretch of 3 to 4 months between the time when the farmers buy these inputs and when they sell the crop. Farmers usually take crop loans at the beginning of the season and repay the loan after harvest. Repayment of the loan is crucially dependent on the income from farming. In Sapna's case, the failure of the crop made loan repayment impossible. She had to sell part of the land to repay the loan. Credit, instead of helping Sapna improve her earnings left her worse off. This is an example of what is commonly called debt trap. Credit in this case pushes the borrower into a situation from which recovery is very painful. In one situation, credit helps to increase earnings and therefore the person is better off than before. In another situation, because of the crop failure, credit pushes the person into a debt trap. To repay her loan, she has to sell a portion of her land. She is clearly much worse off than before. Whether credit would be useful or not, therefore, depends on the risk in the situation, whether there is some support in the case of loss. Terms of credit. Every loan agreement specifies an interest rate what the borrower must pay to the lender along the repayment of the principal. In addition, lenders may demand collateral security against loans. Collateral is an asset that the borrower owns, such as land, building, vehicle, livestock, deposit with banks, and uses this as a guarantee to a lender until the loan is repaid. If the borrower fails to repay the loan, the lender has to right to sell the asset or collateral to obtain payment. Property such as land, titles, deposits with banks, livestock are some common examples of collateral used for borrowing. A house loan. Mega has taken a loan of rupees 5 lakhs from the bank to purchase a house. Annual interest rate on the loan is 12% and the loan is to be repaid in 10 years in monthly installments. Mega had to submit to the bank documents showing her employment records and salary before the bank agreed to give her the loan. The bank retained as collateral the papers of new house, which will be returned to Mega only when she repays the entire loan with interest. Interest rate, collateral, and documentation requirement and the mode of repayment together comprise what is called the terms of credit. The terms of credit vary substantially from one credit arrangement to another. They may vary depending on the nature of the lender and the borrower. The next session will provide examples of the varying terms of credit in different credit arrangements. Variety of credit arrangements. Example of a village. Rohit and Ranjan had finished reading about the terms of credit in class. They were eager to know the various credit arrangements that existed in their area. Who were the people who provided credit? Who were the borrowers? And what were the terms of credit? They decided to talk to some of the people in the village. Read what they record. 15th November 2019. We head directly to the fields where most farmers and laborers would be working at the time of the day. The fields are planted with potato crops. We first meet Shamlal, a small farmer in Savanpur, a small irrigated village. Shamlal tells that every season he needs loans for cultivation on his 1.5 acres of land. Till a few years back, he would borrow money from the village moneylender at an interest rate of 5% per month, 60% per annum. For the last few years, Shamla has been borrowing from an agriculture trader in the village at an interest rate of 3% per month. At the beginning of the cropping season, the trader supplies the farm inputs on credit. What is to be repaid when the crops are ready for harvest? Beside the interest charge of the loan, the trader also makes the farmers promise to sell the crop to him. This way, the trader can ensure that the money is repaid promptly. Also, since the crop prices are low after the harvest, the trader is able to make a profit from buying the crop at a low price from the farmers and the selling the later when the price has risen. We next meet Arun, who is supervising the work of one farm labor. Arun has 7 acres of land. He is one of the few persons in Sonpur to receive bank loan for cultivation. Interest rate on the loan is 8.5% per annum and can be repaid any time in the next 3 years. Arun plans to repay the loan after harvest by selling a part of the crop. He then intends to store the rest of the potatoes in a cold storage, apply to a fresh loan from the bank against the cold storage receipt. Bank offers this facility to farmers who have taken crop loan from them. Rama is working in a neighboring field. She works as an agricultural laborer. There are several months in the year when Rama has no work and needs credit to meet the daily expense. Expenses on sudden illness or functions in the family are also met through loans. Rama has to depend on the employer or a medium landowner in Sonpur for credit. The landowner charges an interest rate of 5% per month. Rama repays the money by working for the landowner most of the time. Rama has to take a fresh loan before the previous loan has to be repaid. At present, she owes the landowner rupees 5,000. Though the landowner does not treat her well, she continues to work for him since she can get loans from him when in need. Rama tells us that only source of credit for the landless people in Sonpur are the landowner employers. Loans from cooperatives. Beside banks, the other major source of cheap credit in rural areas are the cooperative societies or cooperatives. Members of a cooperative pool their resource for cooperation in certain areas. There are several types of cooperative possible such as farmers cooperatives, weavers cooperatives, industrial workers cooperatives, etc. Krishik cooperative functions in a village not every far away from Sonpur. It has 2,300 farmers as members. It accepts deposit from the farm members. With this deposit as collateral, the cooperative has obtained a large loan from the bank. These funds are used to provide loans for members. Once these loans are repaid, another round of lending can take place. Krishna Cooperative provide loans for the purchase of agriculture implements, loans for cultivation and agriculture trade, fishery loans, loans for construction of houses, and for a variety of other expenses. Formal sector credit in India. We have seen in the above examples that people obtain loans from various resources. The various type of loan can be conveniently grouped as formal sector loans and informal sector loans. At its sources of credit per rupees 1000 of rural households in India in 2012. Among the former are loans from banks and cooperatives. The informal lenders include money lenders, traders, employers, relatives, and friends, etc. In Graph 1, you can see the various sources of credit to rural households in India. Is more credit coming from the formal sector or the informal sector? The Reserve Bank of India supervises the functioning of formal sources of loans. For instance, we have seen that the bank maintain a minimum cash balance out of the deposit they receive. RBI monitors the bank is actually maintaining cash balance. Similarly, the RBI sees that the banks give loans not just to profit making businesses and traders, but also to small cultivators, small scale industries, to small borrowers. Periodically, banks have to submit information to the RBI on how much they are lending to whom, at what interest rate, etc. There is no organization which supervises the credit activities of lenders in the formal sector. They can lend at whatever interest rate they choose. There is no one to stop them from using unfair means to get their money back. Compared to the formal lenders, most of the informal lenders charge a much higher interest on loans. Thus, the cost of the borrower on informal loans is much higher. Higher cost of borrowing means a larger part of the earnings of the borrowers is used to repay the loan. Hence, borrowers have less income left for themselves, as we saw for Shamlal and Sonpur. In certain cases, the high interest rate of borrowing can mean that the amount can be repaid in greater than the income of the borrower. This could lead to increasing debt and debt trap. Also, people who might wish to start an enterprise by borrowing may not be so because of the high cost of borrowing. For this reason, banks and cooperative societies need to lend more. This would lead to higher incomes, and many people could then borrow cheaply for a variety of needs. They could grow crops, do business, set up small scale industries, etc. They could set up new industries or trade in goods. Cheap and affordable credit is crucial for the country's development. Formal and informal credit, who gets what? Graph 2 shows the importance of formal and informal sources of credit for people in urban areas. The people are divided into four groups from poor to rich as shown in the figure. You can see that 85% of the loans taken by poor households in the urban areas are from the informal sources. Compare this with the rich urban households. What do you find? Only 10% of the loans are from the informal sources, while 90% are from formal sources. A similar pattern is also found in rural areas. The rich households are availing cheap credit from formal lenders, whereas the poor households have to pay a large amount for borrowing. What does all this suggest? Firstly, the formal sector still meets only what half of the total credit need to be rural people. Remaining credit needs are met from informal sources. Of all the loans taken by urban households, what percentage were formal and what was informal? Poor households, households with few assets, well off households, and rich households. Most loans from informal lenders carry a very high interest rate and do little to increase the income of the borrowers. Thus, it is necessary that banks and cooperatives increase their lending, particularly in the rural areas, so that the dependence on informal sources of credit reduces. Secondly, while formal sector loan need to expand, it is also necessary that everyone receive these loans. At present, it is the richer households who receive formal credit, whereas the poor have to depend on the informal sources. It is important that the formal credit is distributed more equally so that the poor can benefit from the cheaper loans. Self-help groups for the poor. In the previous section that we have seen that the poor households are still dependent on informal sources of credit. Why is it so? Banks are not present everywhere in rural India. Even when they are present, getting a loan from the bank is much more difficult than taking a loan from the informal sources. As we saw for Mega, bank loans require proper documents and collateral. Absence of collateral is one of the major reasons which prevent the poor from getting bank loans. Informal lenders such as money lenders, on the other hand, know the borrowers personally and hence are often willing to give a loan without collateral. The borrowers can, if necessary, approach the money lenders even without repaying their earlier loans. However, the money lenders charge very high rates of interest, keep no records of the transactions, and harass the poor borrowers. In recent years, people have tried out some newer ways of providing loan to the poor. The idea is to organize rural poor, in particular women, into self-help groups and pool their savings. A typical SHG has 15 to 20 members, usually belonging to one neighborhood, who met and save regularly. Saving per member varies from rupees 25 to rupees 100 or more depending on the ability of the people to save. Members can take small loans from the group itself to meet their needs. The group charges interest on the loans, but this is still less than what the money lender charges after a year or two. If the group is regular in savings, it becomes eligible for availing loan from the bank. Loan is sanctioned in the name of the group and meant to create self-employment opportunities for the members. For instance, small loans are provided to the members for releasing mortgaged land for meeting working capital needs, buying seeds, fertilizer, or materials like bamboo and cloth, housing materials for acquiring assets like sewing machine, handlooms, cattle, etc. Most of the important decisions regarding the savings and loan activities are taken by the group members. The group decide as regard the loans to be granted, the purpose, amount, interest to be charged, repayment schedule, etc. Also, it is the group which is responsible for the repayment of the loan. Any case of non-repayment of loan by any one member is followed up seriously by other members in the group. Because of these features, banks are willing to lend to the poor woman when organized in SNGs, even though they have no collateral as such. Thus, the SNGs help borrowers overcome the problem of lack of collateral. They can get timely loans for a variety of purposes and a reasonable interest rate. Moreover, SHGs are the building blocks of organization of the rural poor. Not only does it help women to become financially self-reliant, the regular meetings of this group provide a platform to discuss and act on a variety of social issues such as health, nutrition, domestic violence, etc. Grameen Bank of Bangladesh. Grameen Bank of Bangladesh is one of the biggest success stories in reaching the poor to meet their credit needs at a reasonable rates. Started in the 1970s of a small project, Grameen Bank 2018. 2018 had over 9 million members in about 81,600 villages spread across Bangladesh. Almost all of the borrowers are women and being to poorest sections of the society. These borrowers have proved that not only are poor women reliable borrowers, but that they can start and run a variety of small income generating activities successfully. If credit can be made available to the poor people on terms and conditions that are appropriate and reasonable, these millions of small people with their millions of small pursuits can add up to create the biggest development wonder. Professor Muhammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank and recipient of 2006 Nobel Prize for Peace. Summing up, in this chapter we have looked at the modern forms of money, how they are linked with the banking system. One side are the depositors who keep their money in the banks, or on the other side, the borrowers who take loan from the banks. Economic activities require loans of credit. Credit, as we saw, can have a positive impact, or in certain situations, make it borrowers more worse. Credit is available from a variety of resources. This can be either formal sources or informal sources. Terms of credit vary substantially between formal and informal lenders. At present, it is the richer households who receive credit from formal sources, whereas the poor have to depend on the informal sources. It is essential that the total formal sector credit increases so that the dependence on the more expensive informal credit become less. Also, the poor should get a much greater share of formal loans from banks, cooperative societies, etc. Both these steps are important for development. So that's all about this chapter. If you are interested, please do like, share, and subscribe my channel. Okay, thank you.